Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just would first like to say welcome to Mr. Greco's first video tutorial for my STAR interventions. And guys, we're going to start off today by learning basically how do we as teachers in the state of Texas grade essays. Now, here's the thing I want you to realize is that I could show you the entire scoring guide. It's about 4 pages long, full of dialogue. It is boring, and it doesn't do you guys any good. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really simple, and it's something that you guys can definitely use on the test itself, and that is TEDSS. TEDSS. Now, basically, we as teachers look for each one of these things in your essay. The first thing is your thesis. Guys, your thesis is the most important thing about the essay. Guys, if you don't have this, you might as well not even write the paper, because it is like literally driving a car without anyone at the wheel. Okay? It makes no sense. Your paper makes no sense. You guys have learned this for the most part. Okay? Now, your thesis must, in order to get a good grade, which, by the way, in order for you to get a 3 or a 6 when you have 2 people grading your essays, you must have every single one of these things. If you are missing one of these things, or 2, that's usually when you go down to the 2 range. If you're missing 3, that's when you go down to the 1 range. Okay? We want to avoid that. We want to get a 3 so we can get a 6 so that we can pass the test so that we can go on with our lives. Okay? So, the thesis statement must do these 2 things. You must answer the question and explain why you believe that statement. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you write an expository or a persuasive. The only slight difference is with expository, you explain a little bit more, and there's less sides to choose from, but you still have to explain why you think something. Okay? And that is important. You must have these 2 elements. Now, if you don't have both of these elements, your grade is definitely going to go down. The thesis statement, okay, in general, if you don't have it, if it is marked off, your paper could go to as far down as a 1. Okay, even though that might be the only thing you have wrong with your paper, if you don't have a good thesis, it's not going to work. E stands for example. Okay? This is the thing you use to prove your thesis. Now, here's the thing about the example. What they also look for is, does it connect to the thesis? Okay? Because what happens is you get these really great examples that have nothing to do with what you wrote here. If that's the case, you're going to get marked off. Okay? That is the big thing with the example that we look for. Is it relevant? Does it make sense? Does it actually prove what you're trying to say? Okay? Now, D is for details. Okay? Now, here's the thing about details that you've got to understand. There is a difference between examples and details. Details are just simply the words you use to describe the example. Okay? So these are the words you use to describe the example. examples and details are different. A lot of people think that they're the same thing. They're not. So, for example, if you did a thesis and it was chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla because it is healthier, you would need to come up with an example that proves that it's healthier, okay? So the example could be something like, look at the nutrition label, okay? So that's your example. Now, the details are describing the nutrition label, because you could just say in your essay, you could say chocolate ice cream is better because it is healthier for you. For example, look at the nutritional label. And that's not very detailed, is it? Okay, you would have to add details. The nutritional label says that chocolate ice cream only has 150 calories per serving. However, vanilla ice cream has 160, which, by the way, none of those are true. But you get my point here. Okay, that's the difference. The example is the label. The details are the calorie count, things like that, things that describe the example. I think that's important for understanding, okay? Okay? Now, the last part is sentence structure, okay? Now, sentence structure is simply grammar. Now, here's the issue with this, okay? If oftentimes the sentence structure is the difference between a 3 and a 4, okay? They usually don't take off for it too much unless it is not understood, okay? Unless it is hard to read your essay. If that's the case, then they're going to take off points for it. But if you miss a comma here and there, it is not the end of the world. They want you to use correct grammar. They want you to use compound, complex sentences. That would really help your essay. I'm not saying it's not important, but what I'm saying is, of all these things, this is the one they'll probably take off for the least. Okay? Now, let me show you how all this works and how I grade these. Okay? And how the state of Texas grades these. Now, let's look at this essay. Okay? This is based on the prompt from last year, which is basically, can a person choose to be happy? Okay, now I'm going to read it aloud, and I'm going to write down TEDSS for TEDS, okay, at the top. And then we're going to mark off kind of what's going on here, okay? So can people choose to be happy? Let's see if it answers the question. Anyone can choose to be happy. There isn't a person in the world who can force you to not be happy. Do they answer the question? Yeah, they do. But is there a why here? No, there's not. Because of that, I would have to mark off a little bit for the thesis. Maybe not completely, but just mark off just a little bit, okay? Now, let's look at their example and see if it connects with the idea of being happy. Each and every one of us have the right to be happy. There is only one person who can change your mood, and if you want to be happy, it's you. People can tell you the rudest remarks, but you are the one who has the choice to not be happy anymore. Being happy, to me, is being with your loved ones. They're not always going to give you everything, but they always be there to cheer you up no matter what the situation is. Okay, now, does this example talk about the thesis, about how no one could force you to not be happy, that you can choose? Yes, it does talk about it. It mentions it right here. Okay, you have the right to be happy. It's you. People could tell you the rudest remarks, but you are the one who, all those things connect with their thesis. But here's a big deal. Is it very specific? Not at all. Okay? They don't really even come up with an example. They kind of do right here. Being happy to me is being with your loved ones. They're not always going to give you everything, but they will always be there to cheer you up, no matter what the situation is. That has nothing to do with this. Okay? Because they're just talking, they're giving you an example, but they don't really connect it in any way. They don't explain the details about who the loved ones are. And frankly, it just isn't very specific, and it's not very good. It's not very deep. Okay, so therefore, I would definitely take off for the details and actually for the example a little bit. I think it depends on the person. It depends on who they want to be and how their mood is affecting them. Now, here's the deal. Their sentence structure is not great either, but it's enough where you can understand it, so I'm not going to take off for that, okay? Now, the thesis statement really isn't that great either, but it at least answers the question, so I'm going to leave that. So I marked off 2, so therefore they got a 2 on this essay, okay? And by the way, the official state of Texas grade for this was a 2, okay? Now, I'll be honest with you guys, if it was up to me, it would probably be a little bit harsher. I probably would have given it a 1+, something like that, because I'm not a big fan about how he kind of changes his mind down here. But there's enough connection, even though the example's not specific at all, to make this work. Okay, guys, so I have given you guys the practice activities online. I want you to do your own TEDS and try to figure out what grade did these get. Now, the reason I'm teaching you this is because in order to write a good essay, you have to understand what we are looking for. And that's what this is about. Okay, thank you guys very much. Good luck.